My name is Celestin Musekura. I'm the founder and president of African Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries, known as ALARM. ALARM was founded in 1994 in the aftermath of the Rwanda genocide to deal with the issues of forgiveness and reconciliation, specifically to train Christian leaders who survived the genocide and those who took the mentor of those who passed away, who were killed in the genocide or died in the refugee camps or in exile, to bring hope and healing to the people of Rwanda. But I am not here to talk about ALARM. I'm here to talk about GLI, the Great Lakes Initiatives, which gave birth to the Great Lakes Institute. And I'm going to share the birth of the GLI, the Great Lakes Initiative, that has an annual institute we call GLI Institute. And so really the beginning of the history of GLI is tied into the world evangelization movement. And it started as a result of meetings. So in 2004, the World Evangelization, the Lausanne Committee on World Evangelization organized a conference in Thailand, in the city called Pattaya, at the end of September and early October in 2004. The Lausanne Committee on World Evangelization had identified about 32 issue groups that the evangelical church was dealing with, was wrestling with in the 21st century. And therefore, the Lausanne Committee on World Evangelization wanted to bring leaders from all over the world, especially from the evangelical community, which end up actually bringing together many denominations, not only the evangelicals, they were also Catholic, they were also Orthodox. But the issue number 22 specifically had to deal with the racial and tribal reconciliation. And so the church had to find a response, biblical theological response to the reconciliation. Those days we were seeing genocide in Rwanda. There had been a lot of war and killings in many parts of the world, whether it's in Rwanda, in Burundi, Sudan, South Sudan, in Sri Lanka, and in many other parts of the world. The church was wrestling with the theology of reconciliation. But the evangelical church had not developed really statement to address the issue of racial and tribal reconciliation. So the issue 22 at the Pattaya conference had to deal with the racial and tribal reconciliation. The Lausanne Committee on World Evangelization decided on each issue they would invite a convener and a co-convener. So two people will lead the issues. They will organize other people who are involved in those specific issues. But I, Celestin Musekura, was invited to work with Chris Rice, who at that time was in the Divinity School at Duke University Divinity School. And so Chris Rice was the convener, I was the co-convener. And Chris Rice gave me a call to ask how we are going to work together. And I remember well telling Chris Rice, I am an African, I can't work with someone who have not shared food together. Because if we are not eaten together, if we have not laughed or cried together, then we cannot really take a journey together. So I remember Chris Rice traveled from North Carolina. At that time, I was working on my PhD at Dallas Theological Seminary. So Chris came and visited. We met in my house. We fed him fish and goat. I don't think he had eaten goat yet. And so we bonded over the meal. And we began to work together. And in the process, we were able to identify many Christian organizations and ministries from all over the world that are working on the issue of reconciliation. And so we began to invite, to identify from different denominations, different churches. We contacted Christian organizations that were part of the Christian movements working in relief in those countries that have been hit by racism, whether it was in the West, in South Africa, or in East Africa, Central America, North America, Eastern Europe, and so forth. And by the few months before the meeting in Pattaya, we had already been meeting in different places, but most of the meetings of the key leaders of this group, we had about 12 key leaders of this group meet at Duke University a couple of times. In fact, we were hosted by Greg Jones, who really embraced the reconciliation, and let alone, actually, I will mention about this, but let alone Greg Jones, after he fell in love with this work of the evangelicals in areas of ministry toward reconciliation and peace and forgiveness, started Duke Divinity School's Center for Reconciliation. So really, but I come back to that later. So we met before we met in Pattaya, the leadership team of 12 leaders, we traveled together to Rwanda, and because we really wanted to visit some of those areas where tribalism has caused damage, has caused atrocities. And so because we had been meeting in the US, we had met leaders of movements that are dealing with the racial reconciliation, black and white. And in Rwanda, we were able to visit places where massacres in the churches, where genocide had taken place. And we were able to lament, we were able to cry, we were able to see really that the call is seriously the call towards reconciliation. The 12 members of the leadership team that we had formed decided to meet in Kigali, as I am mentioning, to really lament and have time to reflect on some of the consequences of tribalism, and especially when the church fails to address those issues, either from the pulpit or from the engaging the powers to be, engaging the government, and being an advocate for the justice, whether social justice or peace and reconciliation. So Rwanda, we met in Rwanda, and we were able to visit different places, places of brokenness, places of pain and tragedy, so that we could even begin to think the importance of lamenting even as a part of the journey towards reconciliation. In Pattaya then, in 2004, at the Pattaya, we had about 47 Christian leaders from all over the world that gathered in Pattaya. We had spent time in meetings. We had spent time in meetings at Duke in Rwanda. We had spent time learning the process, and we had spent time actually working on a paper that will be presented at the Pattaya conference. And so when we gathered at Pattaya in Thailand in end of September and early October 2004, 47 Christian leaders from all over the world, from Asia, from Africa, from Eastern Europe, and gathered at the conference, we were able to give a presentation. In fact, we organized the washing of the feet that included Orthodox washing, Protestant, Catholic washing the feet of non-Catholic, Hutu and Tutsis washing each other's feet, Palestinian and Israelis washing each other's feet, as really a symbol, vivid symbol of what reconciliation is all about. And so after we presented our issue group, the group that presented racial and tribal reconciliation was one of the issue groups that probably was more remembered because of the vivid imagination, the clear evidence of how much we had worked towards really the importance of this issue. And so because in the process we had identified reconciliation as the mission of God, we had also in the paper put that the church's mission of making disciples cannot be complete without the ministry and the mission of reconciliation. We felt at the end of the partia that this is not the end. And so we said we are not just going to end with the presentation, with the paper, with the booklet we presented, but the members decided that we are going to form a network of reconciliation. And so we formed a network of reconciliation. I became the first global director together with others, and that ended up actually creating a group that met. And so in 2005, there was a very strategic conversation, which I believe this is the beginning now of the actual GLI. So because World Vision, Alarm, Duke Divinity School, and the Mennonite Central Committee were part of the initial 47 people who gathered, out of these groups, 4 of us met, Chris Rice at Duke Divinity School, John for the Mennonite, Emmanuel Katongole, who was also the Duke, and Bill Lowry, actually, who was World Vision, and I. So we were 5. We met to discuss how do we continue to help to work with the church, especially in Africa, that is wrestling with this issue. But also how can the University Duke Divinity School can engage into this issue of racial reconciliation, not just as a course, but maybe in the future to create seminar or conferences that will engage the North American churches in the issue of tribal reconciliation. So the 5 of us, when we met, then we said, how about starting in Africa an initiative that we call Great Lakes Initiative. And so we met, we discussed. That was in 2004. So in 2005, I believe, so in 2005, we can say 2005 became really a year of dreams, because not only did we meet at Duke, but also we began to put a plan on what this GLI, Great Lakes Institute, rather Great Lakes Initiative, was going to do. So we said, what will the Great Lakes Initiative do to help the Christian leaders who are wrestling with the issue of tribalism in East and Central Africa especially, how we work alongside them so that the recommendations we made at Pattaya to the Lausanne Committee on World Organization, World Evangelization, can actually be actualized within the East and Central African context, where genocides and killings in Rwanda and in Burundi, in Congo, in northern Uganda, in South Sudan, and Sudan. So there were a lot of killings going on. So the question was, how do we, as the Christian community, as the evangelicals, how do we work alongside those who are working in the issue of reconciliation? Of course, by that time, Alarm was already involved in reconciliation in different countries in the region. And so that's when we dreamed. And so in 2006, then the first gathering, we call the GLI, took place in Kampala. So we called it Kampala Gathering 1. And so in 2006, few leaders, about 40 Christian leaders, bishops, moderators, Christian organization leaders, founders of ministries like Alarm and others, gathered in Kampala. That was GLI 1. And so really I can say that these 40 Christian leaders from the region gave birth to what we see today as GLI. And then after we met after we met in Kampala, the following year we met again in Kampala. Then we went to Burundi. Then we met again in Burundi. So after 4 years of meeting, then we decide together, I think, since we are growing and there are many people interested, there are younger leaders who are coming alongside, we need to put up an annual event that we call Institute, where we have leaders who are wrestling with issues of reconciliation, will come for three things mainly: to rest, because many of them were working in an environment that's more tribal, but also that's more traumatic. And so it will be a place for rest and rejuvenation. The second was for reflection, to reflect on what's going on. The third reason was really, how do we train, how do we equip, how do we give tools and skills for those, especially the younger peacemakers who are entering in the ministry but have not been prepared. And so that's how the Institute started. And so until today, we have had the Institute for 13 years or so that really continue to train the people. So really, this is a summary of the beginning of the Great Lakes Initiative, which later on gave birth to the Great Lakes Initiative Institute, which has brought now, when we started, we were just Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, and Uganda. But today we have about 13 countries coming, not only East and Central Africa, but in this current conference, we have people from Ethiopia, from Burkina Faso, and from Chad. And so these are coming because our organization, World Vision, the Mennonite Central Committee, and the Alarm continue to bring others, to invite others, the Catholics, the non-Catholics, different denominations, meeting to learn how to deal, how to respond to the issues of conflicts in a biblical way, how to equip the church to respond biblically to the issue of tribalism through biblical methods of forgiveness and reconciliation, peace building, but more so how leaders how leaders would embody this truth, because we believe the mission of reconciliation is at the heart of God. Without reconciliation, we will not be here. The church exists because God reconciled the world to himself and gave her the ministry and the message of reconciliation. And therefore, we believe anyone in Christ is a new creation, and therefore they live not only for reconciliation with God, but reconciliation with one another. So as members of the Christian community, we are called to be peacemakers, and so GLI exists to equip more leaders to be truly peacemakers and make a difference where they live. Thank you for listening. God bless you.